Okay, let's jump right in. We're about to go on a journey into the deepest story there is, our own. Now, we usually tell this story with, fossils and timelines, but today we're going to frame it with a parable, a kind of mythic poem that when you really look at it, turns out to be shockingly true. This is the story of us, of where we all came from. So the story goes like this. A long, long time ago, every creature had its place. The herds belonged to the grass, monkeys to the trees, fish to the river. Simple. But there was one kind of animal that just didn't fit. And that, right there, is the mystery of our species, isn't it? Why were we the ones who could never quite belong anywhere? The story calls this creature the edge walker. It's this restless animal, born in one world but always looking over at the next. It couldn't fully commit to the forest, but it couldn't commit to the open field either. It was an animal of the in-between, and it only felt at home on the threshold, right where one world met another. This one idea is the key to our very first steps. I mean, that language is beautiful, but it's also a perfect description of the ecological niche that literally made us. Our earliest ancestors, and by ancestors, I mean hominins, which is just the branch of the ape family that includes us and all our extinct two-legged relatives. They found their home not deep in the forest or way out on the savanna, but right on that boundary. That dangerous, fertile edge, that's where we learn to be us. And this is where the science just clicks perfectly with the parable. So you look back around 6 million years ago, and what's happening? The climate is changing. The great African forests are starting to shrink. And that's it's creating edges. Our line didn't just up and leave the forest one day. No, we were the ones who started exploring that new open ground. And by 4 million years ago, we were fully bipedal, upright apes walking that literal line between the trees and the grass. So what happens when you're a creature that's always a little bit out of place? You're not the strongest. You're definitely not the fastest. You gotta get clever, right? Being an edgewalker forced us to innovate. And that spark led to the first tools, to controlling fire, and to a world that was, for millions of years, absolutely filled with other kinds of humans. And check this out. This is the engine of our evolution. It wasn't just one big invention. It was this incredible feedback loop. You figure out how to use a stone to crack open a bone, and suddenly you've unlocked this huge new source of calories, marrow, brains. More calories? Boom, bigger brains. Bigger brains let you plan more, think ahead, which leads to, you guessed it, even better tools. This cycle put our evolution on the fast track. Okay, so this is a really crucial point. You have to throw out that old image in your head. You know the one, the monkey slowly standing up and turning into a modern human. It's totally wrong. For almost all of our history, we were not alone. The reality was a braided world, a messy, tangled, amazing river of different human groups, all living at the same time, often in the same places. And this helps us see them for who they were. People. The Neanderthals weren't brutish cavemen. They were the people of the cold valleys, brilliant hunters, perfectly adapted to the ice ages. The Denisovans, the people of the high plateaus. And us, Homo sapiens, we were just one of many successful types of humanity, all sharing this incredibly crowded planet. All right, now for a chapter of our story that changes pretty much everything. It's a story we're only just now starting to piece together, mostly because our true homelands, our most populated, most innovative cities and highways, are lost. They're all underwater. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. The caves we find way inland, those are the equivalent of remote mountain cabins. The real action, the bustling centers of human life for tens of thousands of years, was on these huge coastal plains that just don't exist anymore. We're basically reading the footnotes of a story whose main text was erased by the ocean. And this number makes it real. During the last ice age, so much of the world's water was locked up in these massive glaciers that the sea level was 120 meters lower than today. That's like a 40-story building. Imagine the ocean just dropping by that much. All of that exposed land was our world. And these weren't just little strips of beach. We're talking about entire countries. Doggerland, in what's now the North Sea, was a land of rolling hills where mammoths roamed. The Sunda Shelf connected mainland Asia to all its islands. Beringia was a whole subcontinent. These weren't barriers our ancestors crossed. These were the places they called home for thousands and thousands of years. Which brings us to a pretty
big and, frankly, unsettling question. After millions of years of a diverse planet full of different kinds of humans, why are we the only ones left? What happened to all of our cousins?
The parable gives us this heartbreakingly poetic answer, spoken by a mammoth. See, our cousins, like the Neanderthals, were masters of their worlds. They were perfectly adapted to the Ice Age. But belonging completely, well, that's a huge risk when the world itself starts to change underneath your feet.
The end for our cousins wasn't some big, dramatic war. It was more like a long, slow squeeze from all directions. The climate went wild, breaking up their habitats. Our own groups, Homo sapiens, had larger social networks and more flexible tools, which gave us an edge. And finally, in many cases, their smaller populations just interbred with ours and were absorbed. They didn't just vanish. In a way, they were woven into us. Let's just pause on that for a second. Around 37,000 years ago, the last campfires of our closest relatives went out, and for the first time in millions of years, there was only one type of human on Earth. This solitude we take for granted is, evolutionarily speaking, a very new and very strange way for us to be.
But wait, here's the final, absolutely incredible twist in the story. That lost world of our cousins? It isn't really gone, not entirely, because every single one of us is carrying its ghost right inside ourselves. Yeah, your own DNA is a living mosaic. If your ancestors came from anywhere outside of Africa, you have somewhere between 1% and 3% Neanderthal DNA. If you have roots in parts of Asia or Oceania, you could have up to 5% Denisovan DNA. We are not a pure species. We are the living result of that ancient braided world.
And get this isn't just some historical fun fact. This inheritance is working inside you right now. Some of the genes that help your immune system fight viruses, a gift from the Neanderthals. The amazing ability for some people to live at super high altitudes in Tibet, that came directly from Denisovan DNA. These ancient meetings are still shaping our lives today.
So this is what it means to be human. We're a composite being. Every one of us is a walking, breathing archive of a lost world. Your DNA contains the echoes of Neanderthal campfires and Denisovan conversations. We are the last survivors of a much bigger, much more diverse human family. So let's bring this whole 8 million year story home. Let's connect all this science right back to that simple, wise parable we started with. What does it mean to remember that we are and have always been edgewalkers?
And this is the parable's final warning, and it is a chilling one. Our greatest gift as edgewalkers, our adaptability, our cleverness, our ability to see the whole pattern, is also our greatest danger. We can so easily mistake being not of a place for being above a place. We can use that unique perspective not just to survive, but to dominate, to step on everything.
And so the story has to end right here with a question for us. As the planet's only surviving, restless, and unbelievably powerful hominin, what does it mean for us to be edgewalkers now? What does it mean to remember that our very nature comes from the threshold, from the boundary, from the fertile spaces where different worlds meet? That's the story we're all living right now, and we're the ones who get to decide how it ends.